MCU has yet to deliver an R-rated movie, and now it's not sure if that will be the upcoming Blade movie. But that should not stop me from looking into the movie, right? Well, that's why I'm here today, to tell you some bits and pieces about the movie that you might not expect, or even something out of the ordinary when Marvel Studios is at hand. So without further ado, let's dive right in.
Who would have imagined a mere human like me could have overpowered you?
One of the most legendary Marvel characters will be getting a reboot from Marvel Studios in the form of the upcoming Blade movie. And while the movie has had its ups and downs ever since it was announced, many directors and other people from behind the scenes leaving and other newcomers joining in, the essence of the movie looks to be no different from when the first news about it came through, with Mahershala Ali standing at the top of the list of crucial elements that will make or break the character. Up until this point, despite not being in the flesh, so to speak, but still, we have all been able to witness Blade's debut in the MCU in the form of his voice in the Eternals movie's post-credit scene, where he tells Kit Harington's character, Dane Whitman, to delve into the unknown at the moment when he reaches for the ebony blade, the most important element of Whitman's character that eventually turns him into the infamous Black Knight character, who has seen many faces using the almighty weapon, with Dane probably being the most notable one out of all. This is technically the first debut of the Daywalker of the MCU, but the more important thing about the entire scene is the notion of things and where Marvel intends to take the character moving forward, as well as which characters we should expect to appear in the movie. And while the sword spells danger in Dane Whitman's hands, something that the comics have told us already, because of the post-credit scene alone, many fans have started to speculate that it could be Blade that wants the ebony blade for himself, something that the scene could have been filmed in order for the MCU to set up the Daywalker, or not. I'm still uncertain. But as time passes by, and as the release of the movie comes closer and closer, we'll surely have more details about the character, as well as the plot of the movie, especially when a trailer or a teaser of sorts drops on the internet. The other big thing that the Blade movie could be alluding to is that Marvel, through the character, will try to introduce the first live-action iteration of the Midnight Suns, a team that both Dane Whitman and Blade are a part of, as well as the likes of Doctor Strange, Ghost Rider, and even Moon Knight. Speaking of releasing, the movie has had its fair share of delays, which brings me to the official release date, which suggests that the movie will hit the big screens around the world on September 6, 2024. There are a whole lot of paths that the movie could take, and whatever the choice is, I'm more than certain that we'll be in for a treat, simply because of the character's stigma around him, and the fact that we have already seen Wesley Snipes take on the character many years ago, who also had a thing or two to say about the character that made him famous in his earlier career days. But more on that a little bit later. Eric Brooks' interest in the Ebony Blade, Eric Brooks, the real name of the Daywalker Blade, implies that the character might hit that like button just like you should if you haven't done so already. But no, in reality, it looks like the character might potentially have a much larger role than what we all expect, with him potentially even becoming a member of the next Avengers team-up, something that has already happened in the comics. The main reason why I decided to include Blade's interest in the Ebony Blade is one feature of the weapon that lets you slice open portals through dimensions, only if the wielder gives into the bloodlust and allows the sword to take over their soul, which to me sounds like the perfect combination for Blade, with him making his official debut in the flesh as he slices through victims and starts carving his way in the MCU. Outside of the plot, the narrative of the movie, and how it will look, there are some things that you might not be familiar with when the character is spoken of. And the two main things that I want to point out are that the two movies will look very different, despite the same character at hand, but also the marketing that will be done for the upcoming movie, and how it all went down with the original series. Oh, and I almost forgot. There was the question of whether the movie will be R-rated, or maybe having a PG-13 rating, something I'll touch upon in just a second. When the first movie came out, it was a huge hit because it brought something new to the scene that eventually put the superhero genre way higher up the list. That was in 1998. And now that the superhero genre has seen so much popularity, how will Marvel deal with things, given the most special thing about its character has already taken place? Well, prior to the release of Blade, the character was nothing more than just an A-list Marvel character, with many people around the world not even aware that the black leather coat and sunglass wearing character was not even a Marvel property, which is why Blade was marketed as Hollywood's equivalent of the Hong Kong action movie and Wesley Snipes battling vampires. And seeing how things went down, the strategy surely paid off. On the other hand, there is Marvel Studios and the upcoming Blade reboot. The company will do anything but mask the superhero of being a Marvel property, which is understandable given the place where the superhero genre is in today's world, as well as the fact that Marvel Studios has already released more than 30 projects that involve superheroes throughout. All of that being said, and the comparisons between the original and the reboot, it's needless to say that the upcoming movie will still have influences from the impact of the original. And while Marvel will surely strive to give a fresh take on the vampire hunter, there is no way that the previous endeavors of the character will be completely forgotten. There are still going to be elements that will get cross-referenced. It's inevitable. However, there is one thing that still has been left for debate: the rating of the movie, which might be the most interesting thing regarding the character. Outside of the fact that Blade has already smashed the subscribe button and ring that notification bell. But no, on a more serious side of things, it'll be interesting to see how Marvel will adapt to the entire thing. Firstly, because of the R-rated original from back in the day, and secondly, of how that type of movie will probably not look good on Disney's resume moving forward. And this is where the aforementioned Wesley Snipes' take on the reboot of his character steps in, who, to put it in short, said that the movie does not necessarily need to be an R-rated one, or at least not because of the original being of that rating back in the day. The MCU is yet to produce an R-rated movie, with the closest the company has been to that was the darker properties as of late. Looking at you, Doctor Strange in the Multiverse of Madness, and the special called Werewolf by Night, which surely added some horror elements into the mix. However, both of the projects reached the PG-13 rating, and nothing more than that, which are also two of the projects that I'm looking at when thinking of the Blade movie, and now becoming the perfect time for the character to make his debut in the MCU, in none other than a solo movie that will potentially lead to a whole lot of new adventures and characters that could very well end up in the MCU. Whatever the case may be, an R-rated Blade should be a lot of fun, especially if it becomes the first Marvel movie to be of that kind. But this doesn't mean that Marvel should pursue this element of the character, and rather make him its own, the way the company is used to with some bits and pieces thrown around that could eventually lead up to more projects of this kind. See you in the next video.